It's the Daylight Midnight Show.
Hello and welcome to the Daylight Midnight Show. My name is Greg and let's get it out of the way straight away. Yes, I am wearing a thermal t-shirt in March. The wind is howling outside, it keeps raining, I've just been out to feed the birds and it felt like about 2 degrees Celsius. Welcome to spring, everybody. So let's reveal our wonderful word of the week. This is a word that I have encountered over the past 7 days that I wasn't familiar with before, so I've learned what it meant and I'm going to show it with you now. Autotomy. Now, this is something that I knew happened. I didn't know that the word for it was autotomy. This is the ability that some animals have to cast off part of their bodies to help them escape from a predator. There are certain lizards that will be crawling through the desert, and if a snake comes up and grabs their tail, they can just detach their tail and run away. Starfish do it. They can lose a limb completely. The reason it's come up this week, and the reason I've learned that it's called autotomy, is because of a report from Japan. There's a university in Japan that have published this in a journal called Current Biology, and it's all about sea slugs, which are creatures that are like slugs that live in the sea. And they've discovered that they can basically detach their head, and the head can swim off and leave the body behind. So if they get stuck under a rock or some kind of creature grabs them to eat them, they can pop their head off completely. And the remarkable thing is that the head will grow a completely new body. It will generate a new heart, it will create new internal organs, and it will go on living as an entirely new creature. It only happens up to a certain age. The older ones, it doesn't work, but even in the older ones, the head will survive for about 10 days before it perishes. The younger ones will grow a completely new body and have a full life. The body that gets left behind, they've found out, doesn't grow a new head, but that body without a head will continue living and moving around for weeks or possibly even months afterwards. What witchcraft is this? It's amazing stuff, and I was going to use it as the topical limerick for this week, but I decided against it because I found a different story. But I wrote a limerick about it anyway, so here we go. As we battle with virus and bugs, good news from the world of sea slugs. If a body they lack, it'll simply grow back. Won't it be great when we can do this with humans? So if your granddad has a horrible accident, you can grow his body back, even if all you've got left of him are his lugs. You can see why I rejected that as the topical limerick of the week. But let's find out what this week's topical limerick is by swinging round to the Door of Delights, where the topical limerick lives. Couple of things to change on here before I go any further. Outfit roulette. I only think the hats should be on once, so now I've worn the Australian hat, I'm going to cross that out and I'm going to go with my cowboy hat, because I found a Stetson in the bag that I had this hat in, so that's ready for outfit roulette later. And I was going to put up a picture of a cookie. Last week on the show I did this online survey to find out what kind of cookie I am, and the kind of cookie that I most represent as a person is an almond cookie, which is quite ironic because I can't stand them. And I was going to print off a picture and have it up here as the official cookie of the Daylight Midnight Show, but I can't find an image anywhere online that is copyright free, and I don't want to get in trouble, so I'm going to have to make some this week, print off a picture and I'll put it up next week, or I might make one and just nail it to the Door of Delights, or is that a bit extreme? So be ready for that next week. So let's find out what story this week's topical limerick is all about. This story is all about the company Shoe Zone. Now, YouTube has weird rules apparently about advertising and sponsoring, so I'm supposed to point out, I understand, that I have no affiliation with Shoe Zone. This isn't a paid for segment, it's not an advert. I'm not interested in working for them. I just happened to see this story and it happened to be about Shoe Zone, so I've used it for a limerick. Anyway, this week they have replaced their head of finance. Their previous head of finance was a gentleman called Peter Foot. What a wonderfully apt name for someone who works for a shoe company, Peter Foot. They've replaced him, and the gentleman they've replaced him with is called Terry Boot. Now, I think if it happens once, it could be a coincidental thing. I once met a nurse whose surname was Lovelot, and you think, how appropriate. So if it happens once, you think it can just happen. When they replace someone with a Foot name with somebody else with a shoe-related name, you kind of think maybe they're doing it deliberately for the advertising. Or maybe it's a prerequisite of working there. You have to have a shoe-related pun in your surname. So if I change my name to Greg Toes, I might be able to be their managing director next week. I wonder as well if it works for other companies, that if you have a surname that they think matches it, you stand a better chance of getting a job. So my surname is Powles, but there is an idea that maybe you should pronounce it Powles, like telegraph poles. So maybe I can get a job for BT, or for an Arctic exploration company, who knows. So anyway, a limerick all about this story to do with Shoe Zone and the names, blah, 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 blah. There once was a group called Shoe Zone who liked people with names like their own. When they lost Mr. Foot, they hired a boot. Their next hire might be Jim Anklebone. That is truly awful. I'll give that a D minus. See, I should have gone with the Sea Slugs one. So from the Door of Delights, let's swing round to the brown folder, which of course now has its own theme song. It's so windy outside that we have fences blowing down. Let's see what is written in the folder that is brown. That's a work in progress. So the brown folder is just something I scribble stuff in because my mind goes all over the place and I can come up with an idea and forget it in seconds. So I write it all down so I don't forget it. Point number one this week. Should I be worried that halloumi use by date is so far in the future? What the hell is in it? I've got a block of halloumi that was bought last week that's sealed in the fridge, and the use by date is about 18 months away. And I thought normally with cheese, once you've got it, you have to use it up quickly because it goes all infected and mouldy. What is halloumi made of that it can last for 18 months? I've got this vision that there'll be a nuclear holocaust and all we'll be left with is tinned fruit and halloumi. Oh, I might do that as a taste test one week. Tinned peaches and halloumi. Remember that one. Point number two, this is about food as well, because I'm afraid food is one of my favourite subjects. Watermelon might now be my favourite food of all. I even love the way it looks externally. You see, I've talked about this before, about how lovely, watermelon looks gorgeous when you cut it in half. There's that lovely succulent red. It's got a lovely flavour to it. We bought one this week and I even fell in love with the way it looks out. So isn't this just the most beautiful thing? I mean, I'm looking forward to killing it and cutting it in half and eating it and sucking its guts out, but isn't that just so attractive? So I've decided I might write a love song about my feelings towards watermelons. And if you think that's weird, please bear in mind that in the past I've written a love song about my feelings towards fish and chips, which I think you can find on the same YouTube channel that this is on. And the last thing we've got in here is a little bit of scientific research. This is a follow-on from last week's show. And if you remember back in series one of the early shows, I did a scientific thing and I said we're going to have a regular science feature called Einstein's Toolbox, which I thought was a lovely name for a science feature, and I even designed like a poster for it. There's Einstein, obviously, with a little bit of Hitler mixed in. And we never did it since, but we're going to do it today because last week I was talking about footballers spitting and how I've been watching a lot more football on television recently, and I hate the fact that you keep sitting. A player will put in a cross, the cross goes out for a throw-in, they cut to a picture, a close-up of the player who messed up the pass, and you just see him spit. And it happens so many times, it's really putting me off watching it. And I asked, is there some kind of scientific reason why they're doing it? They can't just be mindless louts spitting in the street. Is there a reason behind it? So I've done a little bit of research. Several studies have been done that show that the kind of exercise that footballers do increases the amount of a certain kind of protein that your body produces. So when professional footballers, you're very fit, you're running around a lot, but every so often you do those sudden bursts, lots of energy, using up lots of muscle fatigue. And when you do that, your body produces a certain kind of protein into your saliva. It creates a kind of mucus that has been designated as MUC5B. And the thought is that when you're running, you're doing these short bursts of energy, you breathe in, you take big gulping lungs of air to try and get oxygen back in your system. And when you do that, you're inhaling dust, pollen, twigs, dead sheep. So your body creates this thicker mucus, which is better at trapping all the stuff that you're breathing in because you're going instead of breathing normally. So that's the idea. It makes the saliva a lot thicker, which also makes it harder to swallow. If you're producing a little bit of it, you swallow it and your body deals with it. But if you imagine you're playing football for nearly 2 hours, you keep swallowing that, it's going to start to coat your throat and it can start to feel like you're choking. So they are told to spit it out. It's not clear why we produce more of it when we're exercising, but it stops the mouth from drying out, apparently. And also it becomes like an automatic reaction. So they're not deliberately spitting every 10 minutes or so. You know, your body does things automatically. If you eat something that's poisonous, you don't consciously think, I should vomit that up. Your body takes control and makes it happen. And this is a similar thing. So we can't really blame the footballers because their body's just saying, don't swallow this, spit it out, it's going to be better for you in the long run. So fair enough, there's a reason why they do it, but I don't think we should have to watch it. So I think the burden now goes on to the television companies. When I used to work in radio, there used to be something on the desk called a cough button. So if you're interviewing someone and it's obvious they're about to cough or sneeze, because you don't want the listeners at home to get you press this button and it cuts off the microphone. Most live television isn't live anymore. There's at least a 10-second delay in case someone swears or dies or a bird falls on front of the camera. So you can cut away from what you've just seen happening before it's broadcast live. So I think they should do this with football television programs. There should be an extra person sitting in the production booth, and if the director decides to go to, I don't know, pick a random footballer, Theo Walcott, and he looks like he's about to spit, the person in the production booth can cut away from that camera and show a picture of something else, like a manager on the sideline shouting or swearing. That would stop us seeing the spit, and I do think people are influenced by what they see on television, and if you see your hero spitting, is that 10 minutes already? Okay, let's wrap this up. Then you're going to copy that, and that's why I go and watch local football and see people spitting on the pitch, and why you see people spitting in the street. As a society, we need to cut it out, and I think the television companies can start by doing that. If I ever get off my backside long enough to make a campaign and start a campaign, this is going to be the one that I'm going to focus on. So, time has gone, so let's crack on and let's do outfit roulette, decide what I'm going to be wearing next week using the randomness of the Rubik's Cube. The first colour is green, so next week I'll be wearing my dressing gown. Under that, we will have to pick whatever item of clothing is in column orange, which is my onesie. That's going to be hot, a onesie under a dressing gown. And finally, to accessorise all that, will be blue, which will be, I will be wearing a pair of glasses as well. So join me for that next week. Sorry for running over time. A rhyming couplet to end the show on then. If your name matches your job, you might get free advertising. Watermelon is the food I find most appetising. I will see you next week. Have a great 7 days.